It was the first time in human history that a giant had ever been discovered. But the giant lay naked and dead on the beach. Countless people climbed onto his massive body and played around him. Some even drew graffiti on his skin, showing no respect for the dead. It all began half a day earlier, after a heavy rainstorm. A fisherman by the coast claimed that a giant's corpse had washed up on the beach. At first, scientists thought it was just a rumor. But as more and more witnesses appeared, one scientist decided to see it for himself. That was when he saw the towering body with his own eyes. The scientist's worldview completely collapsed, because giants had only ever existed in myths. Crowds surrounded the giant, pointing and whispering, but no one dared to get close until one brave woman climbed onto the giant's chest. When people saw that nothing bad happened, they all rushed forward at once. Soon they were running and laughing on top of the giant's body, treating it like a playground instead of a corpse. The scientist watched them from a distance, feeling disgusted. To him, what they were doing was a vile act of blasphemy against the divine. But he could not stop them. He could only stand far away, silently staring at the lifeless body. Disappointed, he left the beach. But 3 days later, for reasons he could not explain, he came back. By then, the crowd had already lost interest. The corpse had become nothing more than a playground for children, while workers discussed how to cut apart the enormous body. The next morning, the scientist arrived early. Only a few people remained. A young girl sat on the giant's ear, scrolling through videos on her phone. It had been 5 days since the body was found. The seawater had swollen the giant's face beyond recognition. Gathering his courage, the scientist stepped onto the giant's body. He walked along the thick arm until he reached the chest. From there, he noticed that one of the arms had already broken off. It reminded him that this was not a god, but a rotting corpse. When he reached the head, he found that the once bright blue eyes had turned hollow and were now stuffed with cigarette butts. 2 days later, when he returned again, the giant's limbs were gone. Street wanderers had begun painting graffiti on the remaining parts. Another day passed, and the giant's head disappeared too. Over the following weeks, the giant's body was slowly taken apart piece by piece. Some people even built bonfires to burn his organs. Interest in the giant soon faded away, and the once noisy beach fell silent again. Days later, pieces of the giant's remains began to appear all over the town. Shop owners used his bones and flesh as signs to attract customers. The missing head was turned into a public toilet. Now, only a few ribs remained on the beach, silent proof that such a wondrous creature had once existed. When humans faced something they could not understand, they first felt curiosity, then fear, and finally destruction.